Arnold and Zoe met at university, where he was studying finance and economics, and she was preparing to become a botanist. One day, sitting in the cafeteria of the university and quickly eating a complex lunch, Arnold noticed a girl sitting across the hall. She was leisurely drinking her tea and thoughtfully watching the sun's rays play, refracting in the facets of the glass. The girl was surprisingly pretty. That makeup, her beautiful face, attracted him by its natural beauty, and her bright blue eyes seemed to glow from within. On his way out, Arnold could not stand it and asked what attracted her in an ordinary glass of tea. The girl smiled and said she just liked the way the color changed. Arnold was surprised. He did not see anything interesting in it, but he liked the girl so much that he decided to wait for her and walk her to the auditorium. So they started dating. They seemed like a beautiful couple, but when you talked to them, it immediately became clear that these two people are completely different in temperament. Arnold was energetic and impatient, and Zoe always calm with a disarming smile and ready to help anyone immediately. For Arnold, the most important thing in life was to work hard and earn money to live comfortably, while for Zoe the most important thing was to be in harmony with the natural environment. And yet, being so different, they've decided to be together. Surprisingly, for many classmates who knew them well, they got married in the third year. Such a difference in characters was due to the different upbringing and environment in which Zoe and Arnold grew up. Zoe grew up with her mother and grandmother, living frugally and spending her free time reading books and doing needlework. On Sundays, they would go to church, and afterwards would cook a tasty pie, drink tea, and talk on various topics. Arnold grew up in a working-class family, where besides him, there were 3 younger sisters. His family lacked money for almost anything. Arnold was always poorly dressed, and he was the only boy in his class who did not have a cell phone. The boy could hardly hold back tears of resentment, and back then, he swore he would get out of this poverty no matter what it cost him. After receiving his diploma, Arnold began a meticulous job search, and although not immediately, he found a promising place for himself. Zoe, on the other hand, did not plan to look for a job like he did, and she warned her husband about it right away. She was not an idler. Their rented apartment was clean, food was prepared, and Arnold's clothes were always in order. In addition to household chores, Zoe made bouquets and pictures of dried flowers, embroidered, and then sold it all herself at the fair. Her occupation did not bring much income, but it gave her pleasure. She could spend hours wandering through forests and fields, looking for interesting and unique herbs and leaves, causing frank incomprehension with her husband. Arnold wondered how it was possible to waste the time looking for an ordinary herb and doing such nonsense which did not bring much money. On the other hand, Zoe could not understand how Arnold could be so indifferent to such beauty. Arnold often had conversations with her about it, and Zoe soon realized that Arnold did not care about beauty. He just wanted to go to work and earn money too, Because according to Arnold, they would be able to earn money for their house faster and buy everything they needed for a decent life. But Zoe did not understand such aspirations, and that greatly irritated Arnold, who tried to convey his point to his wife.
The house will lock us into one place of residence. We will become its hostages, and I don't want to feel that way. Or living quite normally enough as it is.
Besides, we don't even have normal furniture. Look, don't you want to drive a cool car? You add the to travel iPhone, go to the mall and buy whatever you want.
I don't want to. I don't need it all, Zoe said in all seriousness. But Arnold realized that Zoe, clear and hardworking by nature, really thought so, and this made him even angrier. As for Crate for a while, they still maintained a relationship, but quickly realized that they couldn't be together anymore. Apparently, they really were very different. They parted amicably. After the divorce, they did not stop communicating and were aware of each other's news. Arnold tried to understand several times over the phone how Zoe could continue to live like this. He even offered to help her financially, but she would not listen to him. She wondered if Arnold was satisfied with the fact that he was not doing what he wanted, but with what brought in more money. But knowing his answer, she was staying silent. For a while, they did not communicate at all. Zoe met a street musician named Gabriel, and it turned out that they had the same attitude toward life. They were literally made for each other. The young people got married and went on a long life honeymoon. They bought a used trailer and drove around the country enjoying life. However, when Zoe got pregnant, they had to make some adjustments to their nomadic lifestyle. They bought a modest house in the countryside, put it in order with their own hands, and created the necessary comfort. When their son, Tom, got a little older, the three of them went on a trip, knowing that they had a place to come back to. Tom was like his parents, and already at the age of 3, his talents as a musician and florist began to show. Zoe looked at her husband and son and often prayed that her family would always remain the same. It's where happiness depends not on money. Money was not the focus for him, but rather the fact that everyone was healthy and there was such beauty around. Meanwhile, Arnold was pursuing his dream. He already had his own company, which brought huge profits, a name in business circles, a 2-story mansion in the suburbs, a beautiful wife and 2 children. However, Arnold did not stop at the successes achieved and continued to work hard. First, he strengthened his position in the business, then spent energy on maintaining the image of a successful man. Yet with each day, he was spending less time with his family. Even when going on vacation with his wife and children, he could not stay there long and often left early for business, leaving the family to return without him. Initiations, business trips, frequent meetings with other women in hotels. Arnold was becoming less and less present at home, and gradually became quite distant from his family. Soon, he even had a regular mistress. His wife began to suspect, but all her questions Arnold simply ignored. He was convinced that she would not leave him, as he fully provided for them, and that should have been enough. But it wasn't enough. One morning, after another night of partying, he found the house empty and divorce papers on the table. Arnold was angry but had no time to think about what to do next when a lawyer from the company called and said that there was a serious financial problem, and if it was not solved immediately, the company would face hard times. No sooner had Arnold realized what was going on than he received another call. This time, it was his mistress. Having found out that he was at the club with another woman that night, she became hysterical and warned him not to come near her anymore. Dumbfounded by the way trouble was coming at him from all sides, Arnold laughed nervously. Unable to find another way out, he emptied half the contents of the bar and fell asleep. Waking up on the third day, he staggered into the shower. Then, he decided to go back to the bar, but he stopped himself in time. He realized that this would drive him off the deep end, and he did not want to become a pauper again. And it was then that he remembered Zoe for the first time in a long time. He realized it had been 2 years since he had spoken to her, and Arnold had a strong desire to talk to her, to ask her for advice on how to live his life. When Arnold asked the security service for Zoe's address, and the next morning he was racing down the highway without stopping. Arnold did not reach the village where Zoe lived until that evening. There, he began to wonder why he had driven all the way out here. But all doubts fell away when he saw Zoe walking towards him with a smile on her face. She greeted him warmly and invited him into the house. There she introduced him to her husband Gabriel and son Tom, who were as open and friendly as she was. Arnold relaxed and looked around. He had not seen such an old house for a long time, but in spite of that, everywhere was clean and cozy. The house was filled with toys, and pictures of Zoe were everywhere on the walls. Though invited everyone to the table. There were baked potatoes for dinner, and Arnold could not resist asking for more. It had been so long since he had eaten such simple and delicious food. Littleton wished Arnold a pleasant appetite and smiled beamingly, almost like his mother. It made Arnold's heart tingle. He had never heard such a thing from his children, for he had always forbidden them to interfere with adult conversations at the table. Soon Gabriel and Tom tactfully left, taking the chess set with them so Zoe could talk to the guest alone. The woman poured Arnold her special herbal tea and prepared to listen. As Arnold told her everything, how he achieved almost everything he dreamed of about his wife and children. He also told her about his inappropriate behavior of late and what it had led to. Arnold saw how modestly Zoe lived with her husband and son in a small house without frills, but there was a sense of happiness and peace everywhere, like he had never had before. He pondered with pain whether to be happy, as it was necessary to be like her, to live one day at a time and almost without money. And those who have money are not allowed to be happy.
Why should you live like we do? It's not your way, you're different. Doesn't mean that you or I are bad. You have one road, I be Gabriel, and I have another. You can't live without work, and neither can I nor Gabriel. I remember how your work always made your eyes light up. If only you could imagine giving your attention and time to your family and learn to relax, then everything would be in harmony. I am sure you have not even tried to get joy from the fact that you have your family, from a quiet and creative rest, from the fact that you exist. She added, don't think that we don't argue with my husband.
And you won't be able to do it the way we do. I remember how your work always made your eyes light up. If only you could imagine giving your attention and time to your family and learn to relax, then everything would be in harmony. I am sure you have not even tried to get joy from the fact that you have your family, from a quiet and creative rest from the fact that you exist. She added, don't you think that we don't argue with my husband? Of course we argue, including over money when we do not have enough. But then we both feel ashamed of ourselves and think, how can we earn money by doing what we know and what we like? She continued, of course, you can call our life a one-day life, but we have chosen it. This life suits both of us and allows us to live in harmony and freedom and do what we want. She invited Arnold to stay with them for at least a week, in the house where there is no bathtub with jacuzzi, dishwasher, or air conditioning. She said, sing to start your life. Remember your wife and children were once important to you. Understand that they may have their own interests and desires, and then decide what to do next. But just waking up in the morning, Arnold felt rested for the first time in a long time. Maybe he was tired from the road, or the events of the past few days had exhausted him. But he slept soundly and woke up with a clear head full of energy, and after a cool summer shower, he finally cheered up. This did not escape his hosts, who were already waiting for Arnold for breakfast. Later they were joined by Mrs. Roberts, an elderly neighbor who often helped Zoe and Gabrielle look after Tom when they were not at home and had become a family friend. Arnold also really liked this kind of woman, and in the evening Zoe and her family and Arnold came to visit her with fragrant strawberry pie that Zoe baked. As for another evening, Arnold spent quite differently from the ones at home. He enjoyed taking part in the unhurried conversation. He liked it very much that Tom was an equal here, and again he thought with regret that he was wrong to forbid his boys to be equals as well. At night, Arnold was awakened by the screams and noise of rain outside the window. He realized from the frantic screams of other neighbors that Mrs. Robinson had become ill and had lost consciousness. Someone had already called the doctor, but he did not answer. Arnold offered to take the woman in his car, but it turned out that this would not work. That the roads were washed out and no car could get here. Arnold entered the house and saw an elderly woman with a pale, tired face on her bed, and Zoe kneeling beside her. Tom and Gabrielle were standing nearby. Arnold whispered and offered to call a helicopter. He was ready to pay all the expenses, but when the elderly woman heard that and barely moving her lips, she thanked him for his care and asked only to dial her son's number. Zoe had told Arnold before that the woman had a son with whom she had quarreled 20 years ago and had never come here, but Zoe did not know the reasons for the quarrel. Gabrielle dialed Mrs. Roberts' son's number and handed her the phone.
Son, please listen to me. Don't hang up, the woman whispered with her last ounce of strength. Forgive me, I'm sorry that business has always come first for me, and I've never once told you how much I love you. Maybe your life would have turned out differently. I'm sorry. Son, I'm sorry.
At dawn, the woman died, and immediately after the funeral, Arnold went home. As on the way, he thought a lot about Zoe and her family, and finally understood the message she was trying to convey. He said she was trying to convey to him, and he also remembered that Mrs. Roberts' last words to her son, and realized with horror how many things he had not told his wife and sons. He decided to go immediately to them and beg forgiveness on his knees. Ismail more than once he went to his wife, begged her for forgiveness, told her he understood his mistake, and was ready to prove it every day. He saw the resentment in his wife's eyes, but he kept coming back again and again until one day they all returned together to their home. After putting the children to bed, Arnold hugged his wife and said what he had long waited to say. "Honey, help me make a fresh start. We both need a fresh start if we want our children to live without a draft," the woman said affectionately.